Aristotle once famously said, "The female is, as it were, a mutilated male." From a young age, you were taught that women were divine beings. They were supposed to be gentle, healing, loving deeply and purely, that they were the answer to your inner turmoil, the balm for the pain you couldn't name, and you believed it, because everyone else did. From the first fairy tales you heard, women were the prize, the angel, the mother, the muse. And you were the pursuer, the sacrificer, the one who knelt and offered yourself for a little intimacy. But what if all those things, those beliefs, those illusions you grew up with, were not only wrong, but were designed to blind you? What if women weren't the angels you thought they were? What if the woman you loved wasn't your other half, but a mirror of your misunderstandings? Aristotle understood this, and he did not romanticize it. He did not describe women in poetry. He observed nature, without embellishment, without illusion, without mercy, and what he saw shook the very foundations of fairy tales. He said this not out of hatred, but as a cold observation of form and function, a biological fact, not a moral one. For nature, he said, never lies. Wait, this isn't about biology anymore. This is about how that truth crushes the illusions you've been carrying around in your heart. For if love, in its most rudimentary form, is not reciprocity, but hierarchy disguised as devotion, then what is going on when you say you are in love? Are you bowing to an idealized image of yourself? You don't see her. You see the part of you that needs healing. And her? She sees the part of you that is desperate to believe. And that is her advantage. You think she's soft and gentle? Look again. That gentleness is a performance. It's not always manipulative. Sometimes she doesn't even realize it. But it's still an act. Because if Aristotle is right, then everything she does, everything she becomes, is molded around what you need to see. Not because she's weak or deceitful, but because her survival instincts dictate it. She adapts. She is strategic. She is emotionally flexible. She is a shapeshifter. Because when you are not the center, not the default of the world, you learn to survive by bending to the dominant shape. In a world dominated by men, women bend, not for love, but for survival. So next time you look at her, ask yourself, are you seeing a person, or just a projection? A companion, or just a prop for your unsatisfied hunger? The truth is, you don't want a woman. You want the idea of her, and she knows that. That's her power. She doesn't need to dominate you. She just needs to reflect you. And when she does that, when she becomes the echo of your emotional dream, you fall, you surrender. Not because she's strong, but because you've given her power. You think you're loving, you think you're giving. But really you're bargaining. You're offering your manhood on the altar of validation, hoping she'll look at you and say, "You're good enough." But what if she never meant it? What if she never saw you at all? Just a version that could be manipulated. And here's the thing no one dares to say. She's not looking for the truth. She's looking for advantage. Not out of cruelty, but because that's her design. When you speak with vulnerability, she listens strategically. When you open up, she listens for weaknesses, for patterns, for gaps that need to be filled. Not because she's evil. She's not the source. She's the response, the echo, the adjustment. You call her emotional, but she's a mental surgeon. She doesn't feel the way you think she does. She scans every gesture, every silence, every change in you like a line of code. She learns the most important thing, how to be irreplaceable to the man who secretly fears her differences. And that is what you do not see. That the love you call is not love at all, but dependence. And her love is not care, but correction. She does not need to control your body. She only needs to live in your mind. And she does. She lives in your hunger, in your guilt, in your need to be desired. But that is not love. It is control so refined you call it chemistry. So refined you call it fate. But fate does not look for weakness. She does. You thought she was fragile. Number. She was a strategist. You thought she needed protecting. Number. She needed to reach out. You thought she waited for you. Number. She watched you. Watched how much of yourself you were willing to give up just to feel loved. And once she sees that weakness, you are no longer a man to her. You are a resource, a means, not to hurt you, but to keep herself at the center. She doesn't move toward you. She revolves around you. She doesn't ask for power. She becomes what power needs. That's not love. That's evolution. And evolution doesn't care about your feelings. So you continue to worship tenderness, continue to kneel before strategy, and still wonder why you feel empty. Why do you give so much and still feel invisible? It's because you don't love a woman. You only love a story, the story you wrote about her. And the tragedy is, she knows it, and she uses it. Why should she correct your illusions when they give her power without confrontation? Why should she tear down the altar you built, when it allows her to rule without anyone realizing she is the one in charge? You call it a mystery. You call it femininity. You call her mysterious. But there is nothing mysterious about her. You just don't want to see the truth behind the gentleness. She's not running away. You're running away. Because the moment you admit that her kindness might be calculating, that her tenderness is a tool, that her care is just a reflection of her will, is the moment you have to face something else, that the version of yourself she sees is a lie. A lie you need more than love. She doesn't need to lie to you with words, because you lie to yourself with meanings. She just needs to adapt to the role you assign her. And when she doesn't need you anymore, when your usefulness expires, the role ends, and you say, she changed, that she doesn't love you anymore, that she's become cold. But maybe she didn't change. Maybe she just stopped pretending. Maybe she just stopped cultivating the image that kept you emotionally docile. And now you find yourself confused, broken, not because she left you, but because the reflection of you, the image you thought was yourself, has disappeared with her. You didn't lose love. You lost the part of yourself that was built on her approval. And now, you're empty, because you were never really whole. You're just a man patched together from the little bits of attention from a woman who knew exactly how much to give to keep you chasing, and withheld enough to keep you insecure. It's not her fault. It's your fault, because you built your identity around her eyes. And when those eyes are gone, your whole identity crumbles. Aristotle wasn't attacking women. He was describing nature. But you can't stand that kind of truth. You'd rather be put to sleep than woken. You'd rather be needed than truly seen. You'd rather be loved through illusion than truly understood. But she always sees. She always knows. She sees how much you need her to be perfect. She sees how desperate you are to feel complete. And she uses that, not out of malice, but out of instinct. Because when you're an unfinished man, as Aristotle said, when you're action rather than creation, your power lies in directing attention. You learn to manipulate emotions. You learn to please. You learn to be centered through vulnerability. And when you do it well, the man won't even notice. He'll call it fate. He'll call it magic. He'll call it love. But it's not magic. It's measured. She's not mysterious. She's meticulous. Every pause, every tear, every touch has a purpose. She's not emotionally lost. She knows. She knows the grammar of your heart better than you do. And she quietly corrects you, strategically, until you're speaking her script without realizing you've lost your voice. And this is where men start to crumble. This is where the illusion starts to crack. One day, you realize she doesn't admire you. She's managing you. She's not supporting you. She's rearranging you. And when you push back, when you reclaim yourself, when you say no, she backs away. Not because she's hurt, but because control has slipped away. And when there's no control, there's no advantage. No advantage, no intimacy. Because for her, intimacy isn't about connection. Intimacy is about dancing. And you dance to her beat without even realizing whose music it was. You dance because you think it's love. You dance because it feels familiar. Because the myth of her grace wraps your loneliness like silk around your skin. But it's not grace. It's gravity. You don't fall in love. You fall into orbit around her moods, her needs, her silences, her responses, and you mistake that for intimacy. But intimacy without clarity is a form of imprisonment. And you've been locked in for so long that you've forgotten where the door is. You used to have opinions. You used to have a direction. Now you find yourself hesitating, censoring yourself, distorting yourself into a comfortable version of yourself. You call it love, but real love doesn't require you to erase your ego. Real love doesn't punish you for being who you are. If to be loved you have to trade your voice, your will, and your mental spine, then you are not in love. You are rehearsing for a role of obedience. But you still defend her. You still tell yourself, she's just complicated. She's been hurt. She didn't mean it, but maybe. The painful truth beneath all those excuses is this. She's not vague, she's clear. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she wants. And she knows exactly what part of you to tap into to get it. You think she's being emotional unconsciously? Number. She's right. Every outburst, every breakdown, every silence isn't weakness. It's a tool. Because in a system where men are the default power and women are the exception, the only way to win is to get men to give up their power willingly. And you do. You give it away as a gift, thinking it's noble. But in reality, it makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. When she pushes your buttons, it's not by accident. She's been probing for them since day one. Every compliment, every "I love your honesty" is a test. She doesn't want your soul. She wants your model. Because once she has that model, she has you. And when she has you, you call it intimacy. But that's not intimacy. That's influence masquerading as love. And here's the deepest betrayal. The one you dare not say out loud. Part of you knows she doesn't admire you. Behind those eyes, she doesn't see a man. She sees a project, a draft waiting to be edited. Your strength is not respected by her, only endured. Your hurt is not cherished by her, but stored. Stored for later. Because whoever holds your pain decides when it will recur. And you stay silent. Because you know, if you speak up, you'll have to destroy the dream you've built around her. And the scariest truth, even more terrifying than losing her, is the realization that you never really had her. It was you who was possessed. The pedestal you build is not a monument. It's a stage, and the performer all along is you. Aristotle never said that women are monsters. He just said that we never really saw them, only our reflections in them. We fell in love with the version they performed, the version designed to fit the cracks in our souls. And now that the act is over, the illusion is shattered. What you mourn is not the loss of her. It is the loss of the person you pretended to be in her presence. But he was never real. He was never complete. He was just a mask you wore to conquer a woman, without ever truly showing you her true face. Now the mask has fallen. The act is over. The illusion has collapsed. And you stand in the ruins, not of love, but of your self-deception. The dream that a woman could save you, that her affection could prove your worth, her presence could define who you are. It all falls apart, and you start to feel the panic, the emptiness. When your identity is now faced with itself, no filter, no disguise. But wait, this isn't the end. This is the starting point, because for the first time, you're forced to ask yourself the question you've been avoiding all your life. Who are you without her? Without the emotional sidecar, without the appreciation, without the role you play to feel valuable, what are you left with? If the answer is silence, then know that silence is your truth. It is the first foundation. It is the first honesty you feel after years of living in someone else's script. You are taught to be the hero in a story written by someone else. But what if there is no story? What if the woman is not the savior, but a mirror? Not a reflection of your strength, but a stripping away of your fear. The truth is, you never loved her, at least not as a person. You loved the feeling of being chosen. You loved the escape from the chaos inside. You loved the feeling of living off her validation. And now that she's gone, you're not broken. You're exposed. You say she used you, but what did you use her for? You turned her into a goal, a philosophy, emotional oxygen. You weren't looking for a companion. You were looking for a ticket, an excuse to avoid facing the inner work, which is scarier than a broken heart. But she never signed a deal to be your savior. She just stepped into the role you had prepared for her, and played it well. And now, Aristotle's words ring true. Women are not demons, nor saints, nor goddesses. They are mirrors, distorted by biology and shaped by survival instinct. Not broken, just different. Made not to lead, but to adapt. And if you don't see that, you're not a companion. You're a victim. But this is the moment you can take back the power. When you stop looking at women as solutions, you begin to see yourself as one. When you stop chasing after reflections, you begin to build reality. And the man who builds himself up is no longer afraid of the absence of her gaze. He does not crumble when she rejects him. He does not waver when she withdraws. Because he is no longer acting, he is present. He is himself. And she will feel it. And she will challenge it. Because when you stop revolving around her, the gravity reverses. The role dies. And instead, something raw begins. Not romance. Not passion. But the truth. She may not like it. She may leave. She may try to mold you back into the person you were on your knees. But if you stay standing, if you stay centered, something will change. You no longer need her to be pure. You no longer need her to be soft. You no longer need her to be anything but real. And it is in that space, void of illusion, that something radical can emerge. Connection without control, love without bargaining, intimacy without coercion. But only if you dare to let the legend burn. So, let it burn. Let the illusion crumble. Let the altar crack. Let the false story drown in its sentimentality. And stand there, alone, honest, unedited. Look at women, not as saviors or villains, but as reflections of the differences that nature created. Not inferior, not superior, just different. Because only when you no longer need her to complete you, will you truly be able to meet her authentically.